Hey. It's me again. One sec. Be with you in a minute. Whoops. Hey again. Oh, come on! Knew I should have got a lighter. Sorry about this, folks. This was actually not planned. There we go. Just give me a second. Hey guys, what's up? It's me, the VHS Velociraptor, and welcome to a new episode of Reaction and Review with the VHS Velociraptor. Not only that, but a Halloween episode. Now, you might be wondering at this point, who the heck is the VHS Velociraptor? Well, it's me, the Meteor Raptor, and you might be wondering, what's with the new name? Are you changing your channel or something? Well, let me tell you a little story, folks. A long time ago, I had considered multiple names for the Meteor Raptor, one of them being the movie Raptor, one of them being the DVD dinosaur. A lot of them were just dinosaur puns, essentially. It was just a joke amongst some friends and some other things. One of them was the VHS Velociraptor. This idea came to me as sort of doing almost a specialty channel where I would review exclusively VHS movies. Now you might be wondering, why the heck would you review only VHS movies? Why not, the more mainstream medium of things such as theatrical releases, DVDs, and straight-to-video? Well, maybe it was a personal choice that dated back to a long time back to when I was a child, finding that VHSs were often more entertaining in a way than DVDs were. Maybe it has to do with the fact that VHSs often have really awesome covers. Maybe it has to do with the fact that VHSs are a lot cheaper and they're kind of collectible at this point. I don't know. Or maybe it has to do with the fact that I bought three VHSs for 50 cents. Either way, you guys, it doesn't really matter why. All that matters now is the fact that I am the Meteor Raptor and I'm also the VHS Velociraptor. Just checking something. And tonight, you guys, we're back with another Halloween special. If you remember last year, I watched the original Evil Dead, citing it as a very good horror movie, but also as the start to something that would become legendary, citing both the Evil Dead sequel, which I at that point hadn't seen, and Army of Darkness, and the awesome Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show, which, to be honest, is one of the best TV shows on TV right now. So what are we going to review tonight? Well, the 1987 sequel to Evil Dead 2, this is going to be weird to figure out how to light this up. Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. I really hope you can see that. I own Evil Dead 2 on VHS. I also own Army of Darkness on VHS. And, of course, the original Evil Dead on VHS. If you're wondering why, that answer's simple, people. At Fan Expo, if many of you know I love going to Fan Expo, I was buying some Blu-rays and stuff, and somebody offered me the trilogy for 50 cents, because I had bought a bunch of videos there. I, of course, said yes, because I kind of collect VHSs. Especially horror VHS movies. I don't really watch them that often, because, well, we have DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming, but sort of as the fact that I can have them on a shelf, it just feels cool. In fact, one of my favorite VHSs is the one I just got recently. It was a VHS of a couple episodes of the X-Men cartoon, which I still haven't seen yet. But let's talk about the more important thing, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, or just as I'm going to call it, Evil Dead 2. I loved the original Evil Dead. I thought it was a really fun, great, just cheesy movie. And from what I've heard, the sequel is so much better, because it takes the original and pretty much redoes it, but as a comedy. And you want to know what kind of humor this movie has? The back, it says, the mother of all sequels, Bruce Campbell. Yeah. And on the front, it's 3 stars by Roger Ebert. Now, I have not seen a lot of Siskel and Ebert reviews, but the ones I have seen on the covers or boxes of VHSs and DVDs, I've often agreed with. Namely, as being the only other one I've really seen was on the cover of MST3K the movie, which I do have on VHS, and I'm pretty happy about that. Anyhow, you guys, I'm really excited to watch this, and what better way to celebrate Halloween than by just checking out a horror classic. So, you guys, without further ado, let's say we kick back, relax, and check out Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. No, I have not put it yet in the machine, and I'm not even sure if it'll work. If this video is only 5 minutes long, then you know it wouldn't work. Just out of curiosity, I don't really care about this, but this movie kind of seems to completely disregard the events of the first movie. Is that true? Does this movie totally disregard the first one, or is it going to tie into it somehow?
The spirit is given license to possess the living.
Well, we just saw the infamous chainsaw hand scene. That was every bit as over-the-top campy and ridiculously cheesy as I thought it would be. And you know what? Bruce Campbell made it work. This movie's awesome. Alright guys, I also saw the other infamous scene. The infamous everything laughing insane scene. Once again, it was unbelievably cheesy, dripping with that awesome B-movie charm, and Bruce Campbell is a gift to mankind. He pulled that scene off with absolute insanity. It was hilarious in all the wrong ways. Okay, please tell me she doesn't get, you know, tree like in the first one. No, actually, apparently she just gets dragged off by the tree. Okay. I will give this movie a lot, like, credit where credit's due. These effects are actually really good, both for its day and even by today's standards. Yeah, I think it's a bit loud, though. Let me just turn it down. So, this isn't as much a comment on the movie itself as it is on the whole franchise as a whole, particularly the TV show. As this movie goes on, more and more has been shown, which the TV show directly calls back to, such as the professor and his wife Henrietta, the whole cellar incident, and most importantly, and this one really surprised me, the level of detail they went to try and create this again. The dagger in the TV show, which can kill Ruby's demon kids, essentially, the Deadite children. It's in this movie, and it's smaller in the TV show, but from the shots we've got to see on it, they went to they've gone to a lot of lengths to try and make it look as realistic to the movie as the TV show has it look. And you know what? That's awesome. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it.
Groovy.
Yes! That was worth it. And I really want to know, is it possible to make a chainsaw hand, is that actually possible, like they did in this movie? If it is, I will gladly chop off my own hand if it means I can have a chainsaw. Okay, well, that's actually a really good stop motion. So as cool as it is to see Ash, blowing up Deadites and cutting them apart, there's something kind of fun about Ash just straight up sucker punching a Deadite. I know they're not called Deadites in this movie, but it's what they're called in later installments, so let's go with it. But there's something kind of cool about him almost being in like a boxing match almost against one of these creatures. Okay. That ending I was not expecting, and it was awesome. So guys, that was Evil Dead 2, or some people call it Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. Let me just get it out. It's gonna be bright for a second. I'm gonna apologize now. The battery's dead or something? Hang on. This might get bright though, guys. I'm sorry for this. Another day, another movie. Well, that was Evil Dead 2. Was it as good as the first Evil Dead? Is it a good movie at all? Is it entertaining? Does it hold up to Army of Darkness and Ash vs. Evil Dead? Well, it's a great movie. It's not only a great sequel to Evil Dead, but, and this is kind of a spoiler, but it doesn't really matter because this movie was made in the 80s. That would make it, oh my gosh, it's 30 years old this year. That it's also a direct tie-in to Army of Darkness. What I mean by that, I'm going to kind of spoil the ending here, but once again, 30-year-old movie, big deal. Ash, when they do the whole, like, let's summon a creature, like, let's summon the portal to take the Deadites back to where they came from, it accidentally causes him to be sent back in time, where he kills the Deadite thing and everyone claims him as the hero from the sky. Sound familiar? It should, because not only is the whole getting sucked through a portal, but being called hero of the sky, exactly what happens in Army of Darkness. And yeah, so the movie directly ties into its sequel. That is great. Not only that, the movie is great in its own right. What I mean by that is the movie, well, okay, let me explain. When I heard about the Evil Dead movies, everyone said that the Evil Dead originally was supposed to be this horror masterpiece. But everyone started laughing at it, instead of being scared. So, Evil Dead 2 was a remake, but done as a comedy. That's true. This movie technically never happened. The Evil Dead technically never happened, because this one tells a whole new story. I had thought that Evil Dead 2 had originally been made, and sorry, one second, I just want to make sure something. I figured Evil Dead 2 was a sort of movie that would retell the same story after the events of the first one, but as a comedy. It's not. And like I said, the first movie never technically happened. Now, this movie, once again, it's got a very minimalistic plot, but it's got kind of a unique twist on it. Where the first Evil Dead was your very classic was now your cliched horror story of a group of kids going to a cabin and being killed off. Evil Dead 2, from the word go, pretty much from the get-go, is just Ash. His girlfriend is there, but she's quickly killed and spends the rest of the movie kind of messing with him, and I'll cover that in a minute. Really, there's only about 6 characters in this entire movie. There's Ash, there's the girl's boyfriend, I don't really remember their names, there's Annie, there's the girl Annie, the girl Jim Bob or something, I don't know, Jimmy, or it's the redneck guy, Annie's boyfriend, I think, they never really said what he was, and then Professor and his wife. Now, the plot is pretty simple, but this time it does have an advantage. Where the first Evil Dead didn't really know that Ash would become the legendary B-movie hero he is today, this one kind of knew to have a little bit more fun with it. So Ash is written as a lot more of a zany character. Granted, he's not the complete goofy character he is in Army of Darkness, but he shows a lot more humor in this one. He makes one-liners, he is just kind of crazy all around, but that also has to do with the fact that the Deadites are messing with him 90% of the movie. Another thing which this movie does really well, surprisingly, is suspense, or at least kind of building a sense of unease, or just flat out being creepy. Because this movie is all done with stop motion, mostly. So we have a scene of a skeleton rising from its grave, well, not even a skeleton, a headless corpse, rising from its grave, dancing around while its head rolls towards it, picks up its head, and then jumps off and disappears. Yeah, we have the infamous scene of a deer head, a deer head, a lamp, books, a clock, and just everything just laughing, and Ash going completely insane and laughing as well. But this movie, while it does have a very minimalistic plot, which is good because it's a very simple movie that's still a ton of fun, it's not very good. Yeah, the plot, it's incredibly predictable, aside from the ending, which kinda is predictable, but I'm gonna cover this all in a second, just let me explain. In terms of horror movie plots that are memorable, this one is because it was sort of the first of its kind. It was kind of the first kids in a cabin being killed. You know, it was unique and original at the time. Now, 30 years later, it doesn't hold up the same. It doesn't have the same sort of impact that the original Nightmare on Elm Street has. It doesn't have that same horror to it. But I'm not looking for a good plot in this movie, much less I was looking for an entertaining movie. My dog's awake. So if you're a fan of B movies, you'll love this movie because the plot works with that. It kind of knows it's kind of a B movie. But if you're looking for a good horror plot, this is not the movie for you. Also, if you're looking for good characters, this is not the movie for you. Like I said, Ash is kind of leaning more towards the B-movie hero he becomes, but he's still not there. That's sort of what Army of Darkness and Ash vs. Evil Dead did really well. But in this one, he's just still kind of he's still a really likable character. The first one and this one, he was incredibly likable. All the characters were. In this one, he's the only really likable character, to be honest, because most of them are on screen for less than 10 minutes before they die. Spoiler, but really, you should have seen that coming. But he also isn't the hero yet. But he's still a likable character. He's an interesting character to begin with in this movie. So, yeah. The plot, it's minimalistic, it has its flaws, but it does also have some good suspense and one or two genuinely decent scares. Yeah, and I'm not just talking on the creep factor, I mean like a couple jump scares kind of get you, but that has to do with the music, and I'll get to that in a minute. This movie, it's really campy, and it's really cheesy, and that's what the writing is trying to be. It's trying to be a cheesy 80s, it's trying to be a cheesy horror movie, and we get that. It doesn't have the deepest plot, it doesn't have the deepest characters, but it doesn't need them. It just needs to be entertaining. And it is. Part of that is helped by the acting. You guys, Bruce Campbell is amazing. He takes all his goofy lines, all his insane scenes, and just cranks them up to 11 and will not stop. Alright? When he is on camera and is told to go berserk, whether it be he's chopping his own arm off, or he is screaming, "Give me back my hand," or he's yelling at his own hand which is crawling around, or he's laughing like a psychopath along with a bunch of decapitated animal heads, or he's saying the awesome line, "Groovy." He hams up almost every line aside from the beginning where that's sort of normal because he's on a date technically, but even then he kind of starts to ham it up a little bit. But after that, he is just cheesy, over the top, and it's hilarious. And to be honest, the other actors are not that great, but to be fair, they don't have to be. They're perfectly serviceable for this movie, but once again, if you're looking for good acting, not here, folks. Not here. I kind of found the two redneck characters were really annoying, kind of, but maybe that's just more my... I don't know, maybe it's just the way they were being acted. But, yeah, Annie is okay. Her friend is okay. The professor actually kind of does a good job because of the way he acts. It kind of works. He kind of actually seems to be kind of serious. He kind of gives off a genuine performance in this movie, which... really, no one was even trying to give off a serious performance because it was just a goofy movie. Special effects. So, I'm going to level with you guys. I love stop motion. I used to make stop motion all the time. The first video I ever published on this channel was stop motion. I still do stop motion sometimes. This movie has some great stop motion. Yes, you can tell it's stop motion and it does kind of look fake, but that's kind of working with the fact that it's supposed to look creepy. To me, the greatest stop motion ever is either Artman's Wallace and Gromit, those shorts, or Charles Band's famous Puppet Master franchise, which is another director horror video series which actually I have a lot of respect for. Those movies, one of them it had some amazing claymation, and the other one it had stop motion that looked actually realistic, like frighteningly real. Go watch it. It's actually a really good series, mostly. A couple bad ones in it, but yeah, mostly it's worth your time. The stop motion here is great. It is kind of jerky and it's kind of janky, so I kind of have to critique that. But it also seems kind of stylized. Like, it has its own unique feel to it. Like, it's intentionally off-putting to be scary. And I will admit, you're not going to be that focused on the stop motion, you're going to be more focused on how creepy everything is. And I will admit that the scene where everything's laughing, I'm just going to call it the laughing stock scene, there's a lot of puppetry in that scene, namely with like the deer head amongst other things, and it looks really decent actually. I don't know how they did it, and I kind of wish I did, but it looks cool. They have like a lamp that's constantly moving up and down. They have like everything's moving at once, and certain shots you can tell it's CG or a puppet. But then there's a huge there's a wide shot of Ash when he's actually like laughing along with them. It's all still moving at the same time, so it's probably some really good puppetry or just amazing stop motion that was somehow worked in around the movie. The makeup is. It's 80s. It looks it looks great though. Excuse me. The few Deadites we actually see, or when Ash gets possessed twice, it looks amazing. And the cool thing is, the people who did the makeup on this actually worked on both Spawn and The Walking Dead, so they have done work since. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It looks amazing. And the gore, well, there's buckets and buckets and buckets of gore. If you get queasy easy, you may want to just pass altogether on this movie because you will probably be a little bit sickened by it because it's over the top, but it is still gory. So, take your chances. If you like it, great. If you don't like gore, then I'd skip this movie. But even like the Deadite costume that is shown in a few scenes is great. I still really like the technique they did, and this is going to kind of jump a bit more into camera work, where where sort of a creature would sort of go like, but you would never see it until it attacks someone. Kind of wish I knew what that was because it looks really cool. And I'm going to assume it's a Deadite or like a Deadite entity or something. But yeah, it looks cool and it works. Part of also what makes this movie work is the editing. You guys know how Edgar Wright, he likes to do really fast-paced editing? And it kind of goes like doom, 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 and then they're at the next scene. This kind of has almost an Edgar Wright feel to it in some scenes where the camera's moving really fast, like left or right, or zooming in really fast, or like moving all over the place. And it kind of adds to the whole psychologically insane vibe that this movie kind of builds. And another thing which helps the movie is the music. There's barely any in it. There are long shots with no music whatsoever. And it does actually kind of help build up the creep factor because then when a jump scare hits, there's not like a dun-ah, there's just the sound of like it crashing through something or it laughing or like a Deadite laughing, and it works. That's how jump scares should be done. Not loud, like doom, like all movies seem to try and be focused on. Genuine tension built up, all building to a climax of something legitimately frightening you. That's how you do a jump scare. This is... Okay, I saved this to the end because I really wanted to talk about this last. Continuity. So, as I mentioned before, Ash vs. Evil Dead is a great TV show. It's one of my favorites right now. And I can't wait for Season 3. During Season 2, they ended up literally going back in time to when this movie would have happened to try and stop Ash from finding the Necronomicon. So, first of all, like I said, the first movie never happened. Okay, that's cool. Let's go with that. Even though the TV show does reference the fact that he killed his friends and his girlfriend, which technically then would mean the events of The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 had to happen at some point. So, that I'm willing to chalk up as just, look, it's a TV show, they had to take some liberties, and it's been a long time since the first one came out. And they weren't really expecting the first one to be taken the way it was. Furthermore, all the callbacks are really good. Stuff with Henrietta and the Professor, you actually kind of see a bit more of them before Ash kills her back then. In fact, technically, the second Evil Dead never would have happened, and neither would have... Like, the second Evil Dead technically never happened if the TV show's timeline's anything to go on. But, you know, we kind of see the professor's work a little bit before, but one continuity issue, and this is a big one. Okay, it's not huge, but it's something I do feel like bringing up because, well, it's kind of a problem I noticed. In the TV show, Annie is a student who is going to help the professor with some studying. In the movie, she's his daughter. Do you see my point there? And I get it. That is like super minor. Pretty much nobody will notice that unless you directly have seen the show recently and then watched the movie. And even then, I was thinking probably a bit too much when I thought of that. It's not a big deal. And I get that the TV show will have to change some things in order to tell the story the way it has to. But it kind of bugged me. I felt like bringing it up. So... But as I did mention before, like with the kind of blah 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 dagger or whatever they called it, it looks really good compared to what the movie had. That dagger, it's not really, they don't say that this thing can kill a deadite in one shot. It's much more just a decorative knife, which is used once or twice. But the show went to a lot of great lengths to try and copy what it looked like. It's smaller, but that's not a big deal. The detail on the skull, on the handle, and all the little blades, you can tell they did their homework. But I'm not talking about the show, I'm talking about Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. So, when it comes down to it, can I recommend Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn? Hang on. Can I recommend this? Definitely. I'd have to give it a solid 3 Raptor Claws out of 4. It's cheesy, it's goofy, it's gory, it's kind of scary, it's campy. It's everything you would want for a horror movie on Halloween. Not only that, it actually serves as a really good sequel to The Evil Dead, which, like I said before in my last year's review, was a pretty good movie in and of itself. And it would give way to a more entertaining sequel in terms of campiness, but the original is more entertaining in terms of fear factor. This one's more entertaining in terms of camp factor, and Army of Darkness is probably my favorite because it's just so goofy. Like, it just goes full out with the comedy, it just goes full out with the horror. It's just great. And in fact, I'm probably gonna go watch Army of Darkness after I'm done this review. But you guys, if you haven't seen Evil Dead 2, first of all, go watch the first Evil Dead, then watch the second one, then watch Army of Darkness, then watch Ash vs. Evil Dead, because I want that show to stay on the air as long as possible, because it has a great story so far, and I do not want it to get cancelled, like so many shows get cancelled before their time, even though I can't really think of any right now. Why is the only one I can think of Cyberspace? No, Cyber Chase. Why is that the only one I can think of? Whatever. You guys, Evil Dead 2 surprised me with how entertaining it was. It was a great movie to watch for this episode of the VHS Reaction and Review with the VHS Velociraptor. It was a great movie to review as the debut episode of the VHS Velociraptor Chronicles. And it's a great movie to watch on Halloween. I can see myself definitely watching it again. And if you guys are wondering, will I ever review the Evil Dead remake? Come back next year. It might be in for a surprise. Or maybe I'll just end up reviewing something else that's totally different. But hey, you guys, until next time, this is the VHS Velociraptor saying keep retro, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Later. Oh, one other thing. Happy Halloween. Smoke went right in my face. I did not plan that out.